Ci'Haan is a sept of the Tau Empire founded during the Second Sphere expansion. Colonized early in the Second Sphere expansion, they rapidly asserted themselves as a rising star among the septs, until they lost over half of their fire and air caste population to the catastrophe of the Fourth Sphere expansion. Due to this, Ci'Haan has seen a surge in the importance and role of its water caste, whose efforts have greatly aided in Ci'Haan's attempt to rebuild themselves while still contributing to the Fifth Sphere expansion. Ever since their remaining fire caste have been conducting hit-and-run attacks against fragments of the Orc and Tyrannid infestations plaguing the Tau Empire. They are also specifically targeting the forces of the Imperial Adeptus Mechanicus, both to avenge the scarring of Pukator and to, quote-unquote, acquire Imperial warp technology in hopes of avoiding a repeat of the Fourth Sphere disaster. The Ci'Haan system contains 5 inhabited planets: Ci'Haan, Pukator, Guro, Volkel, and Shugar. The Prime World itself contains few resources, excluding its vibrant fishing trade, and these deficiencies are only partially offset by the other planets in the system. As a result, Ci'Haan must import most of its raw materials and war machines, a situation facilitated by trade deals negotiated by the Sept's water caste. The literal meaning of Ci'Haan is obscured rain place, and this accurately describes the prime world of the Ci'Haan Sept. An oceanic planet dotted with archipelagos, it is often covered in thick layers of fog and has almost year-round rainfall. Since being colonized in the first years of the Second Sphere expansion, a large population has blossomed upon the countless islands of Ci'Haan, forming fishing villages that migrate seasonally to avoid the torrential storms that rage annually. These same storms create exemplary fishing grounds that the denizens of Ci'Haan thrive on, exporting these foodstuffs to the rest of the empire. Ci'Haan itself is the largest population center of the Sept, with the water and earth castes making up the majority of its citizens. The Prime World is extremely revered in the minds of the entire Sept, and indeed it is common for members of Ci'Haan to migrate back to the Prime World for vacation, retirement, or even just to satisfy their naturally restless spirit. Due to the cultural influences of the nomadic world, the people of Ci'Haan are never content to stay in one place for too long. It is extremely common for members of the Sept to move from one planet to another, often in their lives, with the pilgrimage to the Prime World considered a rite of passage. Indeed, it is somewhat of a taboo for someone to never visit the Prime World, and anyone who has stayed on one planet their entire lives is viewed as having led a boring and unfulfilling life. Pukator is the smallest and least populated planet of the Ci'Haan, but is an incredibly important Earthcast stronghold nonetheless, containing their most important and sensitive research labs. During the later days of the Third Sphere expansion, these labs helped develop the experimental warp drives that would eventually lead to the Fourth Sphere disaster. As they were being developed, forces of the Imperial Forge World foreigners would learn of these experiments and launch an invasion of Pukator in an effort to stop it and learn any secrets held by the Ci'Haan Earthcast. Launching dreaded experimental bioweapons, Imperials turned the capital of Pukator into a radioactive hellscape. Although Ci'Haan would beat back these attackers without loss to the warp engine, the Imperials managed to steal critical data and to capture the ethereal overseeing the project. Even though Pukator has since managed to rebuild their other labs, the capital remains an irradiated nightmare. Rumors persist of cyborg monsters haunting the ruins to this day, a fact that Ci'Haan Command denies despite the fact that patrols sent into the ruins occasionally do not return. The gas giant Guro is the base of operations for much of Ci'Haan's fleet and serves as a vital refueling hub for much of the surrounding area. Surrounded by huge orbital cities and defense installations, Guro houses the largest population of the Sept's aircast. Giro's industrial and strategic importance come from both the gas mining facilities stationed in the planet's atmosphere and the gigantic dry docks where ships of the Tau fleet are built and stationed. Volkel is a heavily wooded and temperate world that contains the Sept's foremost firecast academies. It was here that the top warriors of the Ci'Haans perfected the arts of Ripi Ka, or Thousand Daggers, the strategy for which the Sept is famous. Almost its entire population belongs to the Fire Caste, and the majority of the Sept's Fire Caste are sent to Giro, where they are trained and garrisoned, providing a reassuring means of protection for the rest of the Sept, and a dangerous weapon to use against the enemies of the Empire. The Great Peaks of Shu'Gar are filled with precious and rare minerals and form the main industrial output of Ci'Haan. The high peaks of its mountains are riddled with great mines, and within its plunging valleys are factories and communities of those who work within them. Although Shu'Gar has a respectable amount of industrial output, Ci'Haan must still rely heavily on imports, a situation made worse by recent events which have seen the Sept's need for raw materials and military equipment grow exponentially. Those hailing from Ci'Haan are often regarded as independent, taciturn, and severe. They do not rush into speaking or action, preferring instead to analyze a situation before acting. However, they act with swift decisiveness once they have made up their mind, which once made is not easily changed. They do not tend to form large social groups due to their roaming nature, but small, tight-knit groups of friends that travel together are common and viewed as healthy. While conversing, they generally are concise in speaking, and what humor they have is often dry wit rather than casual joviality. Although Ci'Haan use a similar military structure to the rest of the Tau Empire, they organize that structure with the meta-strategy known as Ripi Ka, or Thousand Daggers, in mind. Ripi Ka focuses on a series of highly mobile and cumulative strikes to whittle away the enemy before crushing him with a final devastating blow. To this end, Ci'Haan typically deploys their primary forces in 3 waves, with an additional preliminary wave of stealth suits, pathfinders, and other scouting forces. The preliminary wave identifies priority targets, generally key components of enemy communications and chain of command, while the first wave destroys as many of these targets as they can. Falling back, they draw out the enemy forces until the second wave destroys them in cunning ambushes and crossfires. Bled of their main strength, the third wave is deployed, consisting of heavy firepower such as broadsides, riptides, and fire support hammerheads that descend upon the foe to crush their scattered ranks. To suit this style of warfare, Ci'Haan's Firecast cadres, made up of various teams, are formed into teams called contingents. Each contingent is designed to carry out a specific wave in the Ripi Ka. Several of these contingents are then organized into communes. Each commune is designed to be able to independently carry out each wave of Ripi Ka, and thus the majority of Ci'Haan warfare is carried out at the commune level. After the losses incurred among Ci'Haan's fire and air castes in the Fourth Sphere disaster, the survivors have doubled down on its high mobility strategy, focusing on launching hit-and-run raids against the enemies of the Empire. Meanwhile, the Earthcasters worked constantly to rebuild their military might. The Aircast, due to severe losses within the Protector fleet, have been forced to rely heavily on their merchant fleet to admirable effect in the defense of Tau space, while the new ships are rapidly being produced. In the meantime, the Watercast, now the dominant force of the Sept, has used their influence to replace their losses with Vespid and Kroot auxiliaries. Traditionally, Ci'Haan has always used high amounts of Vespid auxiliaries as they complement the Ripi Ka style of warfare. In recent times, however, Vespid have come to make up a significantly larger percentage of Ci'Haan forces, and for the first time, Kroot are being used in substantial numbers. Unfortunately, this does not sit well with the newfound xenophobia of those who survived the Fourth Sphere disaster, so these survivors are typically placed in isolated communes. Due to Ci'Haan's reliance on imports and the lucrative deals made by the Sept's now ascended Watercast, Ci'Haan utilizes a high amount of both obsolete and cutting-edge equipment. In particular, instead of the new XV-25 stealth suits, Ci'Haan almost exclusively uses the older XV-15 stealth suits. Although lacking in many features, they are able to import large numbers of these suits from other Septs. Ci'Haan has even grown to treasure these suits for their smaller profile and increased signal shrouding. Ci'Haan also use a larger number of units that are rare in other septs, acquired through trade deals or developed in their own advanced labs on Picator. These include XV-9 hazard battle suits, fire support and heavy bombardment hammerhead gunships, almost exclusive use of the TX-42 variant of the Piranha, and the powerful XV-109 Ivhara battle suit. Ballistic suits such as the Storm Surge and Supremacy armor are not common and are only used to defend the Sept itself.